Welcome to the Tortoise and Hare Financial Podcast. Your hosts Jim Lau and Ryan Genoe tackle a topic that's on the minds of many. Why do people fear retirement? Retirement should be a time of relaxation and enjoyment, but for some, it can be anxiety-inducing. We're here to uncover the reasons behind this fear and provide insights on how to overcome it. From the fear of the unknown to concerns about financial stability and social isolation, we'll explore all aspects of retirement anxiety. So join us as we delve into this fascinating topic and help you navigate the path towards a fulfilling and worry-free retirement.
A rich man's world. I have turned the soul of this beautiful land, but that beauty, a rich man's world. I have turned the soul of this beautiful land, but a rich man's world. I have turned the soul of this beautiful land, but that beauty.
That's such a groovy tune. I didn't want to stop it. How you doing, Ryan?
Good. Great, Jim. Yes,
It's
it's a great new intro to see how we react. I wanted to groove to it also.
Yeah, it's a great start to Thursday morning. I don't think we've ever recorded in the morning before, so maybe we'll come across a little fresher than we normally do.
All right.
For those of you who don't know who we are, I'm Jim Leo. I'm the host of the Tortoise and Hare Financial Podcast, and joining me today is Ryan Genoe, my co-host and also associate advisor at TVH Financial. And Ryan, there's been a lot of talk about retirement, retirement planning, issues with retirement and fears and so on and so forth. So I thought, this would be a good opportunity for us to really dig deep into, what retirement means for a lot of people, the fear that they have as they approach retirement, and how there's a bit of a shift in terms of what their concerns are, the reality of retirement, and so on and so forth. And this came from an article that was in Forbes, and the author of it was Chris Carosa. And it was a really good article. A lot of it rang true to me. What did you think about it?
The same thing. Like, obviously, a lot of the stuff that was mentioned in the article really comes up in conversations with clients, family members too, as they approach retirement and they're trying to think about what retirement is to them. And we did a bit of a podcast. Well, we did a podcast before, 20 reasons to delay your retirement. But, some of the things that I found true within the article was really the anxiety around retirement and how people are a little bit unprepared for retirement and what that looks like. And again, we talked about it, and I know clients have mentioned how they prepare for retirement through us. And those that are just starting to work with us, really not having a clear idea what that looks like to them. And after going through our process, feeling a lot of the anxiety kind of subside as they realize how they're just fine, or that they have some work to do. And at least, in the end, they're walking away with a plan or a goal in mind. When it leads to retirement. So
and I think the article really speaks to more about how once you're in the retirement stage, that fear and anxiety is really no longer there.
Yeah.
But this really focuses on the people who are approaching retirement. So in this episode today, we are going to talk about that. We're also going to offer some advice in terms of how we help our clients transition from pre-retirement to actually starting their retirement stage in life. And if we kind of use some other examples, you're a dad, I'm a dad, moms out there having children. When they think about starting a family and having kids, there's a lot of excitement behind it. And, you kind of have all these dreams and thoughts. And some of the things that'll happen too is, I swear that my kids are not going to be this way, or they're not going to do these other things. And then, they show up and that's all out the window, right?
Yeah.
But then what happens is there's that excitement when you're thinking about starting the family or having a child or children,
Mm-hmm.
to then when you're 9 months away from one actually showing up,
Yeah.
the anxiety starts to kind of creep in, because then you start having all these doubts and you
Yeah.
start wondering, am I going to be a good parent? How am I going to be able to provide for them? And am I going to be able to help them when they need help? And then what happens is child is born and you're in it, and all of a sudden a lot of that fear kind of drops off. It doesn't go away, never goes away,
Yeah.
but it kind of drops off. And then if you decide to have a second or third, well, you kind of know what to expect. So it's a little bit easier.
Yeah.
And this article kind of speaks to retirement being very similar,
Mm-hmm.
to I've had a lot of clients that I've worked with throughout the years who romanticize what retirement's going to look like.
Yeah.
And then they're about, less than 5 years away from it. And I start to see the anxiety and the doubts and the concerns. And then there's that transition period
Mm-hmm.
until they finally reach retirement. So,
Yeah.
I think what it speaks to right now is it's the fact that there's the unknown
Mm-hmm.
from when someone transitions, and retirement really for us, it means, people at work transitioning to money at work,
Yeah.
right? You've gone through 40 years of your life working and earning money.
Yeah.
Now you've built all your assets, and now you're relying on what you've built throughout the years to kind of get you through your retirement. Any thoughts on that, or anything
Uh,
to add?
well, yeah, speak true to about being a dad too. You really look to mentors and books and planning to really help you prepare for that.
Mhm.
You just like as we would suggest with anybody going into retirement, look to the people that are already retired that likely worked with you, what their experience has been. Read some articles, look to some mentors or friends that are going through it, and what reflecting back on what they could do differently and better. And
Mhm.
again, as we always say, working with advisors like ourselves to help you kind of mentally prepare and start really formulating what that retirement looks like. So, and again, when I had a kid, I'm sure I read hundreds of books about how to be a parent and a dad, but there's a portion of it that is a little bit like winging it,
Mhm. Yeah,
because again, every child comes out differently, right? So, and the same
yeah.
for retirement. You have this idea of what you want it to be, but in the end, it becomes a whole lot different, right? Whether it's
Mhm.
helping raise grandchildren, or traveling, there's so many things that can happen versus what you may plan to. So, but uh, but that's part of it, right? So,
Yeah, and I mean, even with the uncertainty of retirement, I've had a lot of people who I worked with who just couldn't wait to stop working and reach the retirement stage. And I'm sure there's a lot of people right now listening to us saying, "What are you talking about? I can't wait till I don't have to work anymore,
yeah,
and I can do all these wonderful things that I have set out in my mind." But that's not the reality. And COVID kind of highlighted or put that reality in front of a lot of people where, originally I had clients who said, I'm going to retire early, or as early as I possibly can.
yeah,
Then they went through COVID and saw or got a hint of what retirement might look like.
yeah,
And their mindset has shifted. They're like, I don't really know if I want to retire early now,
yeah,
because there are a lot of days where, you can only golf for so much. There's only so many things you could do.
yeah,
And I've also experienced that with clients who got laid off or lost their jobs in the past,
yeah,
with the company for 20 years, without work for 8 to 10 months. So, this is pre-COVID, where they still had the opportunity to go out and do a bunch of things.
yeah,
And again, their mindset changed, because they thought, hey, if this is what retirement's going to be like, spending a lot of times on the couch, or whatever it might be,
yeah,
then I don't really want to retire,
yeah,
you know? So there is a
yeah,
lot of uncertainty, and the reality changes once you're in it.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I know there's a quote or something really involving, having that plan. It's like going on a vacation and not having a plan or itinerary involved in it, and
Yeah.
it feeling like a jumble of again, anxiety or understanding what's going to go on through it. So, so yeah, whenever you plan for any retirement, you want to have a plan to an idea of what you want that to look like, and that
Yeah.
way, again, the worries and things kind of subside, and that you
Yeah.
can enjoy the way you wanted it to. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And there's also, there's some basic needs and financial concerns when it comes to retirement.
yeah,
I would say the biggest concern that I find with individuals who retire is not knowing if their money's going to last,
yeah,
because we don't know how long we're going to live. Someone who retires at age 65 might live for another 20, 25, 30 years.
yeah,
And they might have mobility issues at a later stage and might need funding for that. So one of the things that people really do get concerned about is running out of money. And of course, you and I, the clients that we work with, we talk to them about putting plans in place where there's some form of guaranteed income source
yeah,
that will never run out for as long as they live.
yeah,
And I found that gives a lot of people, they're a little bit more calm,
yeah,
knowing that at least I have a portion of my portfolio, my retirement portfolio, that's there no matter what the stock markets do, what the real estate market does.
mhm,
Doesn't matter how long I live. I
yeah,
know I can count on X amount coming in.
yeah.
So that's one way we alleviate some of the stress and the concerns with clients.
Yeah, and that helps take care of essentially the fixed needs that most people have when it comes to the retirement. Most people will likely have their mortgage pay off, so a large portion of that need is taken care of. But
Hmm.
you know, companies aren't offering pensions the way they once did, and we're facing a lot of clients that have no pension at all.
Yeah.
And you know, maybe they're relying a little bit on the government for some of that, but again, understanding what you're getting, what are your needs and fixed costs in retirement versus the fun money that you want to have
Hmm.
throughout it, right? So, and making a plan as to what that fund money is going to do for you, right? And
Yeah.
I saw a lot of clients throughout COVID too that were retiring that originally had this big plan to travel a lot, and instead they spent the money on making their home really an oasis for themselves. And I saw a
Hmm.
lot of pools and a lot of backyard patios go and little bars go into their backyards and
Yeah.
fun things like that, and man caves, lots of man caves I've
Yeah.
seen. So and again, that's shifting your thought process, kind of on the go, but knowing that they had a plan and that
Hmm.
they were set for knowing how they were going to spend some of their money throughout retirement, and that it didn't
Yeah.
affect them in the long run,
Yeah.
for meeting these needs and being able to make the place that they were living a great place. So, which obviously I find it became the secondary part of often what happens when people retire is kind of that social connection or social
Hmm.
isolation that often happens. So,
Yeah.
and I don't know if you've experienced it with some of your clients, but I know that has a huge effect on clients that I've talked to.
Well, and I think again, there's an expectation of the social aspect is going to continue on in retirement,
Hmm.
but people have different lifestyles, different needs, different medical situations as they retire. So, during your working years, if you're working at a company and everyone that you work with, they all work 9 to 5, same hours, and you all get off at the same time, you can go out for drinks afterwards and go
Hmm.
golf and whatever else. That's very different. But once you retire, there you might some of your friends might be able to afford to go to Florida, for example, for 3 months,
Right.
and you're not going to have that friend nearby for 3 or 4 months. What do you do?
Yeah.
There is that part of the social isolation that is a concern. Or maybe your friend becomes sick or has,
Yeah.
again, mobility issues. So your original plan was, hey, we're going to golf every single day with my golf buddy.
Yeah.
And then you find out, well, golf buddy has knee problems and they can't golf. Now what do I do?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that. And I think, COVID, a bit of an extreme situation, but kind of highlighted the impact of social isolation, not being around other people. That can be very similar in retirement,
Yeah.
depending on, again, your circumstances and the people that you surround yourself with,
Yeah.
right?
The retirement years too, social
Mm-hmm.
isolation, the behaviors. We are, as humans, we need to be around other humans, even though
Yeah.
some people are like, I just need my space, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think we all need some space sometimes.
yeah,
But I think we also need that human interaction as well.
yeah,
And going back to the workforce now, I think that's why the hybrid work model seems to be the preferred work model, because it gives people the opportunity to disconnect,
yeah,
from that in-person contact and communication,
yeah,
but it also gives them the opportunity to reconnect as well.
yeah,
Where before it was, 5 days a week all the time, and that can be too much for some people.
yeah,
And then we were 2 years of COVID where it was, this was the only way of communication was through video, and it's not quite the same,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah, there's I can't remember the movie. There's a movie and it talks about two people going into retirement, and both for themselves finding it scary to reconnect with each other now that children are out. They don't have the social connection, and
Hmm.
we're doing a series about marriage too, which is really talking about how you guys going to reconnect with each other as partners, and also give
Hmm.
each other the space that you may need within the household, and making sure you're finding hobbies and things to connect with and friends, and really, you know, going to work for some people doesn't necessarily always give them purpose, but it also is a
Hmm.
purpose of getting out of the house and
Hmm.
being part of something, right? And
Hmm.
we often encourage clients to find what that is going to be outside of work and when you are
Yeah.
retired,
Yeah.
because that often brings a lot of stress and anxiety for people. Is what does this now look like
Yeah.
when work is done and as we prepare for it? So
Yeah.
best time to start looking and preparing. I have a neighbor that joined rowing, and it's
Hmm.
amazing to see the different things that you can discover or always want to do now that you have a little bit more time. And as you
Yeah.
transition from retirement, we've talked about it before. Maybe it's a hybrid of retirement and working still, or starting
Yeah.
your own small business that you always wanted. So following
Yeah.
those passions that you have. So
Well, here's my observation in helping clients transition from pre-retirement to retirement over 34 years. The first thing I will say, and I hope people don't get offended by this, but I find that it's the men that struggle with it more than the women do.
mhm.
And I don't know why that is. I'm, my only thought process is, the generation that I've helped, typically the baby boomers, it
Mhm.
was usually the mom stayed at home and the dad went to work. So I think the mom was used to kind of being at home, where the dad was out there working all the time. That's changed since. So I don't know what the next generation is going to look like, and I'll be curious to see how that kind of resolves itself, or how that turns out. But I find that once the man in the relationship who's set to retire,
Mhm.
they're the ones that are full of the anxiety, and they're scared. And I would say that the year leading to the retirement date, I'm dealing with people, again, typically men, who are very anxious about having to stop work.
Yeah.
And then the first 12 months after that retirement date, there's some additional anxiety. And then the calm happens. Now they're in it,
Yeah.
and they see that, hey, everything that we've set out to do, everything that we planned for, it's working, and we're okay. And there's that comfort zone.
Yeah.
So what I have found, the most successful clients who transition into retirement is, to your point, the ones that do it slowly over time. So as opposed to saying January 1st, I'm done working and now I'm going to figure things out.
Yeah.
They usually start about a year, 2 years before. They start to maybe find a new hobby,
Yeah.
or they rediscover an old hobby, and they start to get involved with it. And eventually what starts to happen is, okay, well, instead of working 40 hours a week, now they, if the employer allows it, they start to cut off some dates, some hours, and there's that slow transition from working full time to just eventually getting a part time. They might
Yeah.
even keep their part as a part time job in retirement just for something to do,
Yeah.
right? So I think that's the most successful way of reaching retirement with the least amount of anxiety and fear is by just slowly transitioning over a 12, 24-month period. And what we do when a client finally says, hey, listen, I'm about a year, 2 years away from retirement,
Yeah.
we always offer it out to our clients. Not everyone takes us up on our offer, but what we say to them is, let's start communicating on a more frequent basis for the next 12 months. Let's start looking at the plan. First step, let's look at the plan we put in place. Where are we at with that plan?
Yeah.
Are we anywhere near the goal that we've set out? And then we start looking at the investments and the holdings. Do we need to start making some adjustments? And then we start talking about, okay, what are your potential income needs, next year when you start to retire?
Yeah.
And where are your income sources coming from? And that's the first 12 months leading to retirement. And then what happens is once they've set the retirement date, again, we are meeting usually every 3 to 4 months. And the question is, how's your income situation? Is it enough? Is it too much? Do we have to make some adjustments?
Yeah.
Because the other thing we don't believe in is we don't turn on the income from all accounts.
Yeah.
We start to pick, okay, well, maybe we draw from this account first. Is that enough? And then that's how we tweak things for the next 12 months in retirement. And I find, again, that's very comfortable for people because there's that constant communication and the constant adjustments. And then after that, they seem to be comfortable. Any thoughts on, the transition plan and
Yeah.
the process that we help our clients with?
No, it's very much the same as starting in the workforce, of really understanding your own like spending needs and things like that, and making sure that when you're not overindulging in areas, right? Because when you're in retirement too, there's a lot of ways that you're on a fixed budget or fixed needs, right? So that year or two going into retirement, just like when you're starting your workforce, is very similar. Of what are my needs? What are my fixed expenses? What are my goals in going into, a life of achieving more, whether it's buying a house or preparing for weddings or babies or whatever it is. So, very similar. And I totally agree that there's some preparation that needs to be done, and encouraging more people to take the time to do so. Again, as you spoke to before, men do really struggle to reach out and talk to people about what these things are like. And
Yeah.
whether it's while you're working, there's a lot of great employee programs that can help support having those conversations. There's, us that you can talk to, lots of materials and documents that you can just kind of start preparing your mind for what retirement will look like. And yeah, really making sure that you're taking those steps going forward. So
Yeah, but I think it's really important that, again, speaking about men and women, and the differences that again, observation is that women at least will talk about their concerns and their feelings, and they will, share those concerns with their friends, their close friends, family members. So there's that dialogue, there's a conversation. It's just a way of kind of releasing a lot of that fear and anxiety. And
yeah,
for whatever reason, us guys, we just don't do that. We're not good at that,
yeah,
you know? So I think really what I encourage, the men to do is have those conversations with your friends or a friend, someone, just to get it off your chest, and talk to your partner about it as well.
yeah,
Like talk to your wife about what some of the concerns are, what your anxieties are, because showing up being grumpy all the time, that's not going to help being in retirement. You
Yeah.
know, you both want to be happy. You both want to, because you've worked so hard. Many people have worked hard to build a family, go through their careers. You don't want to be in retirement all grumpy and scared and whatever. That's a time for you to enjoy things. And to your point, you talked about retirement lifestyle planning and kind of talking about the budgeting, and now you're on a fixed income. You are correct to a certain degree, and that's why when we talk to clients, we'll say to them, we don't believe that you should focus on your goal should be 70% of your current income in
Yeah.
retirement,
Yeah.
because the reason why a lot of the planners and institutions will say that is, well, theoretically, you shouldn't have a mortgage by the time you've retired. That typically represents 30% of your income.
Hmm.
So mortgage drops off, your target is 70%, you should be okay. And my point is, well, if during your working years with that mortgage payment, you were kind of treading water,
Yeah.
then theoretically you're going to be treading water in retirement as well. And I don't want that for people. I don't want that for myself.
Yeah.
So I would rather shoot for the 100%. And if we shoot for 100 and we reach 90,
Hmm.
that's so much better than shooting for 70 and hitting 72 or 75,
Yeah.
right? Because I don't want my clients to have to feel like they're stuck, like they can't go out and enjoy some of the fruits of their labor.
Yeah.
I want them to be able to, at least in their early retirement years, if they're travelers and they want to travel, that's the time to do it. Because I've had clients who have traveled and waited till their 70s.
Yeah.
I've had family members do the same thing, and all of a sudden there's injuries and mobility issues, medical situations come up all of a sudden where it's not safe to travel,
Yeah.
and it's like, okay, well, we've waited all these years and now I can't complete my dream or follow through with some of my dreams.
Yeah.
So really, it's the early retirement years that you want to try to do some of those things. The later retirement years, that's where you're going to be resting and maybe enjoying more time at home and, kind of doing things more locally.
Yeah.
But that's one thing that I do encourage our clients to do is, think about doing these things earlier rather than later.
Yeah. Now, I will say that when I worked on cruise ships years ago, there was one woman that retired and basically retired to a cruise ship, and she traveled constantly throughout her retirement and loved it. So
Yeah.
maybe that's part of your plan too. It's just to retire and enjoy the travel and all of that cruise ship and ship life have to offer, right? So huge.
Yeah, I think there was an article. I think there was an article about a month ago or 2 months ago. I think there was someone who decided to do that. I think they sold their house in Toronto,
Yeah.
and they're just living on a cruise ship for a year, or I think a year or 2 years, traveling the world.
Yeah.
And when they factored in the cost, it was going to be cheaper to do that than to actually live in Toronto,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah. It is a 3-year cruise around the world.
Okay, that's what it is. Yeah.
For 3 years, and I think it was $40,000 a year for like a
Really?
basic inside cabin.
Okay.
So $40,000 a year, and your food's all taken care of, and somebody makes your bed, and you see different places around the world. That's a half decent retirement plan. I may add that up to something for myself for the future too. So,
Well, but think about that, $40,000 a year. If you're someone who's living in Toronto and renting, or still with a home, and you have a mortgage and you're retired,
yeah,
to sell your home, to not have those payments, and to hang out on a cruise ship. Now,
Yeah.
I've personally never been on a cruise ship. You have, so I'm going to kind of maybe rely on you here. But I don't know if I could be on a cruise ship for 3 years and do that.
Yeah.
But I know there's a lot of people who enjoy, cruise ships as well. I've kind of transitioned where in my younger years, if I was to go on vacation, it was, I don't want to sit on a beach, for a week. Like, that's not my thing.
Yeah.
I want to be able to go out and explore.
yeah,
Now I've transitioned to, I don't want to go out and explore. I just want to sit on a beach,
yeah, yeah.
So who knows what retirement is going to be like.
Yeah, well, maybe we just gave a bunch of people a new idea, right? So,
Well, the new idea, and I think one of the other points too is, practice retirement and
Yeah.
practice what that's like.
Yeah.
So if you can transition slowly, again, with if your employment and your employer allows you to do this, to start going on some, if you've never been a cruise ship person,
Yeah.
to try that before you retire,
Absolutely.
to live that lifestyle. I think the big one too, Ryan, and we've talked about this in the past, is the people who romanticize about retiring at a cottage.
Hmm.
You know
Yep.
what? Before you retire, get yourself a cottage, try living there for a month in the winter,
Yeah.
see what that's like. Try living there for a month in the summer when there's a lot of work to be done on the property,
Yep.
and see what that's like. You might quickly find out that, you know what, this isn't the retirement life that I want.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to understand what it is that you want in the retirement planning, and the process that you want to experience or live in the retirement years. So, and what your standard of living is going to be through it.
Mm-hmm.
And again, things come up. We've talked about it before, and it's often, I was reflecting on articles and things that I've read, but sometimes we also don't talk about the things that, like, sudden health events that may happen. Looking at your family history, not that it should scare you, but also for you to be more proactive now, make sure you're healthier. But all these things can have a major impact on what your retirement looks like and what your original plans are. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So it's some of the mistakes I think people can overlook because of the romanticized idea of retirement. Is just fully fully thinking about the psychological effect that it can have on yourself, your family members,
Mm-hmm.
the people around you when it comes to retirements, and how you can very easily overcome through, again, we will repeat this over and over again, through proper planning,
Mm-hmm.
proper research, proper discovery, and talking to the right people. Because you can really overcome a lot of the fears going into retirement, and also the things you don't know, because we don't have crystal balls to tell us. We often talk about crystal balls, so we should maybe invest in looking into
We
seeing
should.
if they can help. So,
Yeah, but I think the point that you're making though about proper planning and doing all those things, obviously I agree with you because that's what we help our clients with.
yeah,
But that's really the science behind the retirement
yeah,
planning.
yeah,
That's not the art.
yeah,
So I think we're really good at helping people with the science to be able to project out a whole bunch of things and make sure that we structure things a certain way to protect them in the worst case scenario and all those. But I think really the part that a lot of, I think, advisors forget about, which is something that we're focusing on with our clients,
yeah,
is the art,
yeah,
right? To talk about, yes, preparing yourself financially as you're approaching retirement, but there's these other things you really need to start considering. Because here's the thing, Ryan. I mean, I've had clients who couldn't wait to stop working and, again, thought about how wonderful it would be to wake up whenever they wanted to and be inside their house in PJs all day long and all those things. And they've done that. And I would say that in the first 3 to 6 months, like, yeah, they loved it,
hmm,
and then it got old really fast, and that also happened in COVID with a lot of people,
yeah,
right? And I would meet up with a client, 6 to 8 months after they've retired, thinking, "Hey, you must be enjoying retirement. We've talked about this for 20 years. You couldn't wait for that day to come. Why are you dressed up in a suit?" "Oh, I went back to work part time
yeah,
because I got bored of sitting on the couch in my PJs, and a lot of my friends again couldn't travel because they had medical issues or mobility issues, and can't do the golfing thing all the time for the same reason because now I have a hip problem, and there's all these things that come up, and all of a sudden they're back to work, and it just keeps them busy, keeps their mind sharp.
yeah,
It gives them that social aspect as well. And I've also had clients who have had some traumatic things come up in their lives,
hmm,
and then they reach retirement, and it's a struggle for 12 to 24 months because they realize that they never really processed whatever that trauma or traumatic event was.
yeah,
And now, because they're sitting by themselves with their own thoughts, now the emotions are starting to kind of come up, you know, and they're kind of dealing with it, and it's a major challenge and a struggle. So, yes, the science behind preparing for retirement planning, that's easy. We do that, and we encourage people to continue on working with us.
Yeah.
But it's the art behind it. There's all these
Yeah.
other soft points that we need to help our clients with, prepare a little bit more with, and we have been doing that.
Yeah. Yeah,
You know,
that's the beauty, that we ask the right questions to help them start really thinking about what these things are, and to formulate and painting themselves a picture, as you said, art, painting themselves a
yeah,
picture of what different opportunities that they can experience within their retirement years and preparing for
yeah,
the retirement years. So
yeah,
yeah, it's pretty exciting to see people go into the retirement and being able to achieve what they wanted to achieve and spend the
yeah,
time doing what they want to do.
yeah,
And yeah, to your point, often a lot of clients end up picking up part-time jobs or being part of the succession plan of their own work into the next generation, and
yeah,
feeling great to be able to teach all the knowledge that they have to the next generation, right? So
yeah,
for those that are like myself, wanting to be big sponges and take it all in, right? So
yeah.
yeah,
And many of them have, you know, either started a second career in retirement
yeah,
into something that they really love. You know, like they've spent 40 years, unfortunately, in a job that they weren't really happy about,
hmm,
and all of a sudden they're into a job that they love.
yeah,
So they've done that, or they've started businesses. You know, someone who's worked for 40 years for someone else and decided, you know what, I want to now be my own boss, and they started their own businesses and successful businesses.
yeah,
You know, so there's a lot of opportunities for people to kind of shift their mindset and really think about retirement in a different way.
hmm,
Enjoy the first few months. If you were dreaming about, you know, sitting on the couch in your pajamas, do it,
yeah,
right? But I think you really need to give yourself some other activities.
yeah,
Start thinking about those in advance. And the other thing too, the other point I'll make, that I know that I've shared this before, I find the clients that can't wait for that retirement are the ones that actually hate their jobs.
yeah,
And the ones who love what they're doing, they're like, I could do this until, you know, I die.
yeah,
You know, so there's also that component as well we have to consider too when helping clients, because sometimes I'll sit with the client and say, okay, when do you want to retire? As early as I can, like next week.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
well, you know, unless you've bought a scratch ticket or played the lottery, and, you know, can't help you with that. But
yeah,
then I've had others where it's like, well, you know what, we'll say 65, but I can't ever see me, you know, not working ever. Like, you know,
yeah,
maybe I'll do something else,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So I'm
absolutely.
hoping we've been able to help some people kind of, you know, specifically the ones that are approaching retirement. And if you haven't had these conversations with your financial advisor, if you don't know, you know, if you've never put a plan in place, and you haven't outlined what you need to do, you know, what the end goal is and what you need to do to get there, I encourage people to reach out to us, and we'd be more than happy to help you kind of figure that out and talk about the transition stage as well, not
Yeah,
just the from a financial point of view,
yeah,
but in preparation for retirement and your activities, and you know what that's going to look like for
yeah.
you as an individual.
Yeah, there's a lot of excitement when it comes to this planning piece, and you know, people come to us a little bit scared, a little bit of anxiety, but there's a lot of excitement that happens because people
Yeah,
get to experience kind of the next part of their own journey,
yeah,
and obviously this journey is retirement. Obviously, I encourage people to start a heck of a lot earlier than, you know, when they're in their late 50s or 60s, but
yeah,
you know, I'm working with clients that are in their 20s already thinking about what retirement looks like
yeah,
for them, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah,
and that there's lots of opportunity for growth and creating new experiences and experiencing things you never thought you would have ever
mhm,
enjoyed. So, as
yeah,
I tell my son, you know, try something 2 or 3 times before you give up on it, right? You never
yeah,
know, right? And that's often involving vegetables, but but still, the same goes for activities for him, right? Like,
yeah,
you know, I know for myself, I never enjoyed volleyball, but who knows? Suddenly I kind of like beach volleyball, right? And
Oh
for
yeah, okay.
30 plus years, I had this view of it, but now I enjoy diving around in the sand. So
Yeah,
you never know where it's going to come with your growth and the different experience it's going to bring a joy and happiness to yourself. So
yeah. And the joy and happiness for me, where I get excited is, working with a client for 20 years
mhm.
and kind of looking back through the 20 years, what their goals were, what they were hoping to achieve, and then getting them to that point, and now they're in the retirement stage,
Yeah,
and it's like, yeah, I'm comfortable.
yeah,
I'm happy. We've been able to achieve everything that we set out to do over the last 20 years. That for me is awesome
yeah,
as an advisor,
yeah,
to actually live with those clients, to see them, during that stage or through the different stages and getting to their goal. And it doesn't mean they still don't have anxiety as they're approaching. It doesn't mean they don't have anxiety in the 12 months leading after the retirement. Um, but seeing them after all that, where they finally just like, yeah, we're okay. This is awesome, and they can enjoy their retirement. That to me it's gold. I just love that. I really
yeah,
do.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh.
Any final thoughts before we shut things down?
Uh, Again, we seem to circle around to retirement and conversations, but really want to encourage people to reach out to us, to an advisor that they trust, to really talk through any of the pain points they see. Because again, when we talk about the wellness and wellness circle, often the financial side gets left behind, and
Mhm.
financial wellness helps create a lot of freedom into the rest of the wellness wheel. And the more you can work with a coach and somebody that's going to really support you and support your goals, then if you haven't found that advisor that doesn't take the time to have these conversations with you and really get to know, then it may be time to ask some different questions and maybe look for a different advisor. And that's those are my final thoughts for people. So
Yeah, and in terms of working with an advisor, work with someone who also has helped clients through the stages,
mm,
because I can't personally say to anyone that I know exactly what it's like to be retired because I'm not retired.
yeah,
But I can say that I've worked with a lot of clients in retirement, and I've experienced what their fears are, what their concerns are. Again, I've observed a lot of these things throughout the years. So try to work with someone who has that understanding.
mm-hmm,
And also, years ago, I had a client of mine who's now retired who said to me, goes, Jim, one of the reasons that I'm working with you is because you're not my age.
mm-hmm,
Because he recognized, he's like, once I get to retirement, if you're the same age as me and you retire the same time that I retire, you're not going to be there to help me through that phase.
yeah,
So also look at who you're working with and the team of professionals. And I'm not saying you shouldn't work with someone your age, but just keep that in mind that if you're expecting to have that assistance, if they don't have a succession plan as an advisor to say, listen, if I'm no longer working, but here's someone that will be taking over to kind of help you through those stages and that phase.
mm-hmm,
If you don't have someone or a team that can help you through that, you really need to consider who you're working with too, because the last thing you want is to reach retirement and the person that you've been counting on is no longer there,
yeah,
and then you're kind of left to figure things out on your own for the next 10, 15, 20, 25 years.
mm-hmm,
So that's just something to consider too.
yeah,
Does that make sense?
yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Well, for those of you listening, we thank you for your time again. For those of you watching, once again, we also thank you for your time. I encourage everyone, if you'd like to find out more, to check out our website, tvhfinancial.ca. You can reach us at financial@tvhgroup.ca, or call us at 647-727-4668. And Ryan, we also have tools that people can download, right? So maybe talk about that for a second.
Yeah, we have an app that you can download, and also obviously you're listening to our podcast. Ability to download and subscribe and follow our podcast through the app also. So, yeah.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you. All right, take care.